If you were anywhere near the internet on the weekend, you couldn't have missed the sight of Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez getting married in Venice.
I feel like you fell down that rabbit hole.
I really did. I watched it like I would watch an award ceremony, you know, like the red carpet, but the red carpet went on for 3 days and involved boats.
So everything I know about this wedding was against my consent. Because I just looked at my Instagram on a lovely Saturday morning, and not even just my Instagram, but my Substack feed, my Facebook feed, my group chats. Everyone was so obsessed with this wedding, and I struggle to think so deeply about something that I know no one will care about in like a few weeks, except for the people who are just so angry about it.
It was like wedding spam.
Yes.
But times 1,000.
And they're just living their best life now, and we're still angry about it. It makes me so angry.
And they're on their honeymoon, God knows where. I was harassed by a wedding I wasn't invited to. And if I was, I'd have RSVP'd no thank you.
Well,
you would have gone. I know you would have gone.
A lot of people would have RSVP'd no thank you, but 200 people said yes please. The groom wore new muscles and a spray tan, the bride wore boobs, and festivities began with a foam party and ended with a pajama and lingerie party.
That's my personal hell.
Well, guests included Oprah, Ivanka Trump, Lachlan and Sarah Murdoch, Sydney Sweeney, Bill Gates, Leonardo DiCaprio, and my favourite description of the whole thing. I read a lot over the weekend about it because a lot of people had a lot of feelings. My favourite was a series of Kardashians walked down a series of jetties wearing a series of $10,000 bras. Some more quick numbers. The cost of the wedding was rumoured to be around $50 million. There were, as I said, 200 guests who arrived on 90 private jets.
Okay, I have a comment on that because
Okay.
I'm not a mathematician, but that means that for each private jet, like there's 2 people a private jet.
Yes, so I did that maths too, and at first I thought, oh, why would they own it? But then I remembered the whole point of a private jet is that it's private. So if you're rich enough to have a private jet, it's your jet.
But private jet pool, Uber pool.
Yeah.
Like I went to a wedding recently. There was a bit of a drive. We got a minibus. You know what I mean?
That was
like get
good
a
move.
private jet and put 20 people on it. But the idea that the private jets are landing with 2 people on them, I guess it's also their entourage, their hair and makeup.
Yes,
personal
everyone needed to
assistant.
bring
There'll
their
be like
glam.
a group of 5. I read that those
Security.
private jets were the same amount of emissions as 27,000 cars in one day.
And I'm not buying any new clothes this year. And let me tell you, watching this,
That'll
I
fix
just
it.
went, F it then.
Well, you know who did buy some new clothes is Lauren Sanchez. She wore 27 different outfits, including a Dolce & Gabbana wedding dress that took 900 hours to make and reportedly cost several $100,000. We know this because Vogue covered it. They did a digital cover that they dropped over the weekend of her wedding dress, which you might have seen was the most covered up thing I think she's ever worn. It was very fitted, but it was she said she didn't want it to go bling bling. She wanted to be classic. And she said this occurred to her after she went up in space. Oh. And she said she wanted to.
That's a last minute dress.
I know. She said she really changed everything after space because she was going to do the traditional sort of mermaid strapless look that she wears a lot, where her sort of bazongas are out the top and up high. But she said, no, I want to be classic.
And more
space
low key with my dress that took 800,000 hours to make dresses. How many dresses did she put on?
There were about 27. We saw a few. We didn't see all
dresses,
of them.
like the movie. That's why she did it. Space
so
Changer.
true.
I have a fashion question.
Please.
I know you briefly talked about this last week, but is this not a bit of a tacky wedding for Vogue to jump on?
The Vogue thing is really interesting because we're going to talk about all the big feelings first, and then we're going to talk about the scurrilous gossip. Because, yes, it was a massive spectacle. And what I noticed the most about the coverage is that the people who were upset about it were really upset. And there was a weird kind of inverted snobbery where a lot of people who aren't rich were turning up their noses and saying that the rich people were very tacky, as though there was some, arbiter of what's good taste and what's bad taste. The definition of good taste is just someone who shares whatever taste you have.
And I read that in terms of the incentive for Vogue to do this, a lot of the big designer houses are not doing so well at the moment financially, right? And so you need the 0.0001% to spend a lot of money at them. So it was like good publicity for your Dolce & Gabbana or whatever to go look at this dress and basically like it's a big ad, and they've got to kind of go, it doesn't matter whether we endorse Lauren Sanchez. She is a vehicle now for us to sell our clothes.
It's not just that though. I mean, everybody, we're talking about it now. Something that I read an interview with Anna Wintor recently, and I've read her biography, and it was a big weekend for her because she is stepping away from her role as editor-in-chief of Vogue.
There were some funny jokes that were like she put Lauren Sanchez on the cover of Vogue and then deleted
bailed.
her Slack.
People were really snobby in the same way that they were very snobby the first time she put the Kardashians on the cover. And I read an interview with her where she talks about being on a plane, and she was flying somewhere and sitting next to a man who was talking about, I can't remember who it was at the time, but a particular celebrity. And he said, she'd never be on the cover of Vogue because that's just, that wouldn't be what Vogue is. And she remembers thinking, she said, I landed and I booked that person straight away, because if someone's in the cultural conversation, the only way for these legacy media brands like Vogue to stay relevant is to be part of the cultural conversation. You don't have to agree with it, but if everybody's talking about Lauren Sanchez, Vogue got the scoop.
See, I found the tacky conversation quite telling or interesting, right? Because I was probably one of those people who felt sick watching this unfold over the weekend. The display of wealth, the vulgarity of the whole thing, the private jets, I found that horrific. But it's like, what? So if her dress was less tacky, I don't have a single opinion on that dress. I don't care about the dress at all. But if the dress was less tacky, then we could justify the exorbitant cost. Like, I think our issue is with the money, and we have to place this within the context of a US right now that is giving tax breaks to billionaires at a time when they are wanting to cut healthcare for working people. I think the reason that this event sort of transcended everything and kind of was so significant in the zeitgeist is I think that people are horrified by billionaires, and it felt as though it was being rubbed in our faces. It felt like the Hunger Games, where you've got these really rich people going, I know there's a cost of living crisis and you guys can barely afford rent right now, but I'm going to wear this dress and come on my private jet. And it was this icky, like it felt so tone deaf, but it felt intentional. It felt like an intentional performance of just like, we are the haves and we want the have-nots to watch it.
I think you're completely right. I think a lot of people get tacky mixed up with loud.
Yes.
And for me, like back in my day, I didn't know a single billionaire, and now I know so many of them. Personally, I didn't know anyone. But
so which billionaires do you know?
I know Musk. I know Gates.
Mm-hmm.
Is J.K. Rowling still one, or did she donate that away?
She did donate some. That's a good point. Yeah.
Do you know who has donated almost $20 billion over the last few years is Mackenzie Bezos, first wife of Jeff.
Is she still a billionaire though?
She still is, because she got a lot more than that. Yeah. So you know her.
Yeah, but she should have donated more. But I didn't know a name of a single billionaire, and now I know so many of them. And it almost felt like if you were a billionaire, you had to kind of be a bit embarrassed about it. Like you didn't want that many people to know, and you were just really secretive about your money. And now you have these guys who are like, we know that the foam for the foam party was helicoptered in because they had photographers for the foam party. They want you to know every single part of what went on during that weekend.
Exactly. Don't you find that part a little bit ugly, Mia?
Well, to play devil's advocate, people have always had over-the-top weddings, and not just rich people, in terms of people of all different socioeconomic groups have always spent a huge amount of money compared to perhaps what they could otherwise do with that money on weddings. So that's not new. Also, rich people have always been rich. They've always had fancy things. They've had fancy jewelry. They've had ostentatious displays of their wealth. Now, we're certainly seeing a reaction to the quiet luxury movement of the last few years. And that's what's so, in a way, fascinating to me about this. And it's not that I don't share your feelings, Jessie, but it's more the flagrant display. I find that interesting. And I think that
there's no shame.
No. And there was always this sense of if you were really wealthy, it was very tacky to show displays of your wealth. That was quiet luxury. That's why It's always been something that you do behind closed doors, and that's more chic. But the world has also changed. Firstly, you've got Donald Trump in charge, and he likes a gold toilet, and he likes everything gold, and he's, even the whole MAGA beauty ideal, it's all very it's not minimalist. And so I find that interesting. And I also find something about Lauren Sanchez interesting in that she genuinely isn't trying to impress Anna Wintour, really. She has got a certain aesthetic that she likes, which is boobs out, huge amount of work, plastic fantastic. She owns that. She's not trying to be someone that she's not. If anything, he has changed to meet her kind of aesthetic, and he's now, jacked and fake tanned. And I thought that what struck me most about the picture that they posted, it was also so interesting to me that she wiped her Instagram clean and announced that she was changed her handle to Lauren Sanchez Bezos.
Yeah, like an hour after.
Yeah, like an album release. Like talk about a rebranding, and then just had that photo. And the photo that they released of the two of them, what struck me was that neither of them were looking at each other. And he was so airbrushed that he was, and filtered, he was like, he looked like a fetus. It was really interesting. Like I found the whole thing just a really rich text.
It is such a rich text, but it just says a lot about where we are. And I don't think that you can subtract the Trump element, right? Because Bezos, let's remember, donated $1 million to Trump, who is now rounding up immigrants in the US and deporting them. And so to see the celebrities, and I've grappled with this all weekend, whether celebrities attending a wedding is a tacit endorsement of the bride and groom and everything they believe, because I'm sure I've been to weddings where I don't know how they voted. I don't know what they do in their spare time. But you can't go to Jeff Bezos' wedding and not know he's the Amazon dude.
But what if he's a nice person? I'm not talking about the business side of what he does. That's a different thing. And what if, by all accounts that I hear from anybody who knows Lauren Sanchez, is that she's a really good time.
Yeah, I suppose.
She looks like she'd be a good time.
I just saw a lot of conflicting ideologies in one place. I found Oprah's presence unusual. I found Leonardo DiCaprio, who I know has done an enormous amount for climate change. And you've got the stark contrast in our image, based media of wildfires in Europe right now, which are climate change related. And then you've got what is descending upon Venice, what that has done to the environment, to fossil fuels, to all of it. And then for Leonardo DiCaprio to arrive, I just thought
you have to co-sign
I know, I can't
all the values of the bride and groom every time you're invited to a wedding.
I wonder if you do, you are in the spectacle, like in the way that they are.
Wouldn't it be more dangerous if they didn't go? Just as we've seen the election and how much of these guys contributed to the election, these guys have all these celebrities in their pocket. Like if I was a Leonardo DiCaprio, I'd be like, well, this guy could shut down my next movie. I have to go.
And I also wondered if I'm Leonardo DiCaprio and I'm trying to get funding and work out my, save this animal from going extinct, then Bezos's money is injecting a lot into that right now. Because remember, I had to go deep because I was like, I need to know how Leo and Jeff know each other. This is my Roman Empire all weekend. And I remembered, do you remember a clip from years ago at an event? We don't know what the event was. And Lauren Sanchez is between Jeff and Leo, and she's looking at Leo like she's trying to kiss him, like she's just enamored. And then Jeff Bezos tweeted and was like, hey, Leo, want to hang out? And it was a thing about a cliff.
I didn't remember that.
So they go to a lot of events and stuff together. The one I can't work out is Sydney Sweeney. That is just, I can't work that one out.
That's a bit of a mystery. I'd like to move to scurrilous gossip briefly. Okay. What was she doing there?
Can someone come up with a theory?
A 26-year-old up-and-coming actress. It's unclear whether she's connected to the bride or the groom. And what was interesting to me is that with 200 people, they had a guest list of 200 because they said they wanted it to be intimate, and people have rolled their eyes about 200 being intimate. But when you two adult people, both on your second marriages with grown-up children, even just your families would you know, blow out the guest list and various business people and friends you've accumulated through your life.
I wonder if they said 200 and it became 300.
Yeah.
Because the amount of celebrities
Yeah, that's
there,
true.
I'm like, I don't think that's
What
true.
people forget is that
Did she hook up with Tom Brady?
Well, weddings have a specific job. Like the bride and groom, their job is not only to get married, but they owe it to their single friends to set them up. Because the single person is there at a wedding. They've done all the like, hey, do you need help dressing up the table? Do you need help organizing the hotel? And there'll be one single person there. I reckon it would have been like Jeff's cousin who's been single for his whole life.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't worry, man. I've got you. I'm going to invite all of these girls for you to meet.
Tom
and that's
Brady.
where Tom Brady.
That's where Sydney came in.
Yeah.
And there was theories that they paid people to come. I don't think they had to pay people to come. But is it a coincidence that Orlando had this in the calendar? Orlando Bloom had this in the calendar and he went, I'm going to relaunch at the wedding because I think there's going to be
just
some
a few days
sexy
after
rich ladies
confirming that he'd split from Katy Perry, which is interesting because Katy Perry was at the Bachelorette do in Paris for Lauren Sanchez, went up in space, of course, starting her astronaut career. But she's in Australia, so she couldn't make it. And they obviously hang out together quite a lot as a couple.
Exactly. And Orlando,
when they were couples.
he seemed to have a good time.
Did he get custody of the Bezos
couple.
Sanchez's?
Yeah.
I believe from reports and because I think we've all got to agree that the best part about a wedding, put that aside, is the next day gossip. It's when you wake up and you go, who hooked up with who?
Yeah.
What happened? What auntie picked a fight with that person?
Orlando had a glow.
He did. He slept with someone. I don't know who it was. But I believe that Sydney and Tom Brady, definitely something happened there. They were walking around Venice the next day together. Orlando was kind of like coming. I think he also maybe liked Sydney.
Both Sydney Sweeney and Tom Brady know the value of a good pap walk. They do.
Yeah.
And so if they had actually hooked up, I don't know. I think that they probably wouldn't have done that pap walk. I think the pap walk was pretty calculated and worked very effectively for them both.
I wonder if Oprah had to come because Gail had to go because of the time,
Yeah,
the
she
11
went to
minutes
the-
in space.
Oprah doesn't have to do anything.
So then I feel like Gail was like, Oprah, please, I don't want to go on my own.
Well, she's the automatic +1. She has to go.
I think that she's the +1. And
Oprah looked like she was having a great time.
she did. And I also know that like Lauren Sanchez's cousin, who is, I see as myself, right, went, what the fuck do I wear to this wedding? And then she was like, Sydney Sweeney's coming. And she's like, what the fuck do I wear? Like,
Well, Jessie, it's funny you should say that because the guests weren't told anything about any of the events for security reasons. So it was just like, you've got to be here at this time. You'll be picked up from your hotel, and that's kind of all they were told. But they were given mood boards because there was a series of events over the 3 days.
That's
they were
so
given
you.
mood boards.
You would have loved that. I would have
for
hated
outfits,
that.
which I think
I wouldn't
would
have understood.
But that's incredibly helpful. That's why all the guests kind of were dressed similar for each.
I don't know how to read a mood board.
I definitely know Kim Kardashian wore what she wanted.
she did not open
She
that
did not
mood
see
board.
the mood board.
She's her own mood board. But did you see, I loved the bit where they all had to wobble on and off jetties.
Oh, yeah.
That was great.
That
Some of
was.
They
them
were like
weren't-
being lifted.
Yeah,
into
some of
flights.
them weren't that thrilled about that.
They were like, can I get a private jet to my jetty?
Just the Kardashians alone, I think, were about 10 people of the, which is what, 10 people in 200. Someone do the maths. That's like 5%.
Yeah, 5% were Kardashians.
Yeah.
Someone should have done the math.